So District Attorney Fani Willis was removed from the Georgia election case, but why? Okay. Now, we're going to deal with two developments here in this case. So we talked about this on Roland Martin Unfiltered with Dr. Greg Carr, December 27th, 2024. And let's go to that clip here. That's what we'll do first. I'm gonna go to that clip, then I'm gonna go to the articles, because this is not following precedent. Removing her from the case is not following precedents or stare decisis, which means following existent precedents, existing law.
A judge has ruled that the Georgia State Senate can subpoena District Attorney, Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis to investigate whether she engaged in misconduct during her prosecution of President-elect Donald Trump. However, Willis has been given the chance to contest whether lawmakers' demands are overly broad. The order filed Monday by Fulton County Superior Court Judge Shakura Ingram says Willis has until January 13th to submit arguments over whether the subpoenas seek legally shielded or confidential information. Ingram wrote that she would issue a final order later, saying what Willis had to respond to. A state appeals court earlier this month removed Willis from the Georgia election interference case after Donald Trump and others, citing a, quote, appearance of impropriety. Yeah, you would be experts on impropriety appearances, wouldn't you? Maybe get Matt Gaetz to weigh in as well. That might not typically warrant such a removal. The Georgia Court of Appeals, 3 Republican judges, said in a 2-1 ruling that because of the romantic relationship Willis had with Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade, quote, this is the rare case in which disqualification is mandated and no other remedy will suffice to restore public confidence in the integrity of these proceedings. They did that with a straight face and tongues, hopefully firmly in cheek. But of course, you could hear the laughter as they did that. Willis's office immediately filed a notice of intent to ask the Georgia Supreme Court to review the decision. Finally, in this block, and we'll just read this and then ask you brothers to respond to any of the stories that we've just laid out. Federal authorities have charged a Missouri man for making racist threats of physical harm against employees of the National Association for the Advancement of Colored People in late 2023. 62-year-old Daryl Jaspering of Warrenton was indicted with 1 count of transmitting threatening communications and 1 count of interference with federally protected activities. For transmitting threatening communications, Jaspering faces a maximum penalty of 5 years in prison and a fine up to $250,000. Wait, then we got one more in the block. I'm going to read this one so then we can think about this, man. It's a lot going on. And obviously, these people seem to be more and more out of control with this double standard. Let's go to Virginia with a federal jury there. A federal jury in Virginia convicted a prison lieutenant and nurse for ignoring an inmate's medical crisis that led to his death. Former Lieutenant Sharonda Covington and registered nurse Tanya Farley, both of Chesterfield, were on duty at the Federal Correctional Institution in Petersburg, Virginia, in January 2021, when a 47-year-old inmate began showing clear signs of a neurological emergency. Instead of getting help, Covington and Farley ignored the inmate's worsening conditions, leaving him to suffer blunt force trauma from repeated collisions with walls and other objects. Covington was found guilty of violating civil rights and faces up to 15 years in prison. Both she and Farley were also convicted of lying to federal investigators, a charge carrying a maximum 5-year sentence. A third employee, Lieutenant Michael Anderson, previously pled guilty to charges related to the case and is already serving a 3-year prison sentence. Covington and Farley will be sentenced in May 2025. Brothers, any thoughts about any of these stories, beginning with any reflections on the life and career of Greg Gumble, which I guess young people might not know who Greg Gumble is. I mean, everything has exploded. There's no more just 3 networks. Sports aren't the events that they used to be in terms of people kind of being guided by commentators. But any thoughts on any of the stories?
Yeah, I'll go first, if that's okay. So comment on Greg Gumble and Fani Willis. Yeah, I remember Greg Gumble on CBS Sports as well as NBC Sports. He was a trailblazer. He was in broadcasting for 50 years. He was the older brother to Brian Gumble. So a lot of us remember Brian Gumble on the Today Show. But you also had Greg Gumble, who dominated in sports broadcasting. And he did it at a time when there were not a lot of African Americans in sports broadcasting, especially those who were not former like professional athletes, right? You see a Shaquille O'Neal, or you see some of the ones on ESPN or something like that. But, you know, Greg Gumble was different. So, you know, he's an ancestor now. So our condolences to his family. With Fani Willis, she should definitely appeal this. I read the article from the Associated Press, and, you know, they're saying that there was this state's appeals court earlier this month, you know, removed her, saying that there's an appearance of impropriety, but they didn't specifically state what the impropriety is. Yes, she had a relationship with Nathan Wade, but the relationship developed after he was brought on to the case, number one. Number two, I went back into my archives and looked at the article from 11alive.com out of Atlanta, Georgia, the news station out of Atlanta, Georgia. And they have an article, "No, it is not against Georgia law for a prosecutor to have a personal relationship with appointee." When you read this, it does not violate Georgia state law for them to be in a relationship. Okay. And this makes it pretty clear. Now, if there's some other thing, if there's something else, if they specifically targeted somebody to enrich themselves or something like that, but that's not the case here. And the defense, Michael Roman's defense, has not proven that's the case. They tried to throw that up, but that got shut down when Fani Willis testified that she paid Nathan Wade back for, you know, the portion of the trips that he took her on, things like this. She paid him back for that. So this is them just trying to give Donald Trump an out, and Donald Trump's cronies an out here. But this is not an appearance of impropriety, and they can't point to what the impropriety is. And last point, I think it's Michael Roman's defense team. There's a husband and wife team on the defense team raising the arguments against Fani Willis, and they're married. So come on.
You know, it's two sets of rules. I mean, you appear in courtrooms every day, Matt. I mean, you've seen some things, I'm sure, and anybody who's ever been around the courts in any way, if you've been there in any sustained moment, you know all the stuff that happens before the judge puts on the robe and comes out on the bench would shock most people who don't know anything about. So how are you reading this, brother?
Well, first I want to harken back to the last segment and say they some hoes. The Georgia Senate, they some hoes for this. And the reason is because, oh, I hear the laughter in the back. I like that. Because we know the issue is dead. The issue is already dead. You've already had open testimony about this issue. And I'm glad that they at least gave her the carve out to say that the office can say what's privileged or what's not privileged. But this is purely political. This is only to drag her name through the mud and continue attacking her because the prosecution is over. And frankly, at this point, when you have a prosecutor or any lawyer that's involved in a case, they have work product. So the idea that they're going to go through and check her work on something where they've already made this decision is to me purely political, and it's stupid. That's why you're seeing all these self-serving statements about, oh, she needs to come and respond to the subpoenas. But they didn't say that to Trump's people when they were trying to give them subpoenas for January 6th and they were openly disregarding them, right? It seems like that should go both ways, but it obviously doesn't because it's purely political. Now, I also always appreciate the opportunity to say that Michael is longer in the tooth than I am, but I do know Greg Gumble. I have to say that, every time it's necessary. But I do know Greg Gumble. I know March Madness. And, it's really interesting that we watch somebody on TV like him for so long and we welcome them into our homes and we develop a relationship with them, right? We just get used to them giving us information, giving us insights, and we don't always think about the fact that they are human just like us, and one day we won't have them to continue enriching us. But I wish the best for him and his family, and rest in power to the brother. And thank you for keeping us entertained and giving us all the insights you did for the 50-year career that you had. But they are some hoes as it relates to Fani Willis. This is not necessary. We know that. This is purely to drag her name through the mud. So. That's my thought.
No question, no question. It seems like the idea of contract labor for favors is becoming a theme on Friday night here, at least this Friday night. But yeah, they definitely are, man. Uh, yeah, we're at an interesting moment. All these ancestors, as you say, that awful day will surely come for all of us. That being said, we're going into uncharted territory. We have been here before, as we know, in terms of being African people in this country. It's going to look a little different this time, though, and it does have a little bit of a feel. You go from the civility of a Greg Gumble, the kind of way they presented themselves to Gumble Brothers and moving through the space, pushing back barriers, and then you got cats out here threatening the NAACP. You got people out here setting people on fire. There seems to be no guardrail. People are talking about guardrails. And I know as we get into the new year, we'll talk more about all of this because there are going to be some unexpected just twists and turns, to be consistent with the emerging theme tonight. I'm sure Trump and them think that when they get to the White House, it's going to be pimps up, hoes down. But I think they don't understand that there are no pimps. They ain't no pimps. They're shade tree politicians, just a rest haven. Anyway, I'm not going to go on with the Mac quote. So let's take a pause here for a moment. Roland Martin Unfiltered. We'll be right back here on the Black Star Network. And
all right, so. So we had a great show with Dr. Greg Carr of the Afro-American Studies Department at Howard University. Brilliant brother. Okay, give us a thumbs up, give us a like, give us a heart on this broadcast. You can post your comments here as well. Be sure to visit our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. Okay, I want to go to this article. Let's go to the first one here, dealing with Fani Willis. This is from the Associated Press. This is from APnews.com, December 19th, 2024, Thursday, December 19th, 2024. We're going to deal with two updates with Fani Willis. Okay. So the first one was the decision from the state appeals court to remove her from the Georgia election case. That was the first one, and that's what I brought up in the segment that you just saw. Okay, so this article here from the Associated Press: Prosecutor Fani Willis is removed from the Georgia election case against Trump and others. This is from December 19th, 2024. A state appeals court on Thursday removed Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis from the Georgia election interference case against Donald Trump and others. The latest legal victory for President-elect Trump, the 34-time convicted felon, the adjudicated sexual assaulter, in criminal cases that once threatened his career and freedom. The case against Trump and more than a dozen others had already been stalled for months over an appeal related to a romantic relationship DA Fani Willis had with Special Prosecutor Nathan Wade, whom she had hired to lead the case. Citing an appearance of impropriety that might not typically warrant such a removal, a Georgia Court of Appeals said in a 2-1 ruling that this is the rare case in which disqualification is mandated and no other remedy will suffice to restore public confidence in the integrity of these proceedings. But they didn't say they didn't provide evidence of what the appearance of impropriety is. And it does not violate Georgia state law for two prosecutors on the same team to be in a relationship. But pursuing a criminal case against a sitting president is a virtual impossibility, blah, blah, blah. Okay, you can read the rest of this. A grand jury in Atlanta indicted Trump and 18 others in August 2023. That was a RICO case. using the state's anti-racketeering law to accuse them of participating in a wide-ranging scheme to illegally try to overturn Trump's narrow 2020 presidential election loss to Democrat Joe Biden in Georgia. Remember, Donald Trump wanted 11,780 votes. He wanted them to find 11,780 votes. Now, the alleged scheme included Trump's call to Georgia's Secretary of State, Brad Raffensperger, urging him to find enough votes to beat Biden. 4 people have pled guilty in that case. Now, Fani Willis and Nathan Wade acknowledged the relationship, but said they did not begin dating until the spring of 2022. The allegations that Willis had improperly, let me go down further in the article here. The allegations that Fani Willis had improperly benefited from her romance with Nathan Wade resulted in a tumultuous couple of months in the case, as intimate details of Fani Willis and Nathan Wade's personal lives were aired in court in February. A defendant's motion alleged that Willis and Wade were involved in an inappropriate romantic relationship, and that Willis paid Wade large sums for his work and then benefited when he paid for lavish vacations. Now, she testified that she paid him back, for those vacations and what he spent on her. Willis and Wade acknowledged the relationship, but said that they did not begin dating until the spring of 2022. Nathan Wade was hired in November 2021, and their romance ended in the summer of 2023, they said. Now their romance ended before Trump was indicted. They also testified that they split travel and other costs roughly evenly, with Fani Willis often paying expenses or reimbursing Wade in cash. In a dissenting opinion, Judge Benjamin Land wrote that, quote, "The law does not support the result reached by the majority," end quote. Trial court judges, he said, have broad discretion to impose a remedy to fit a situation, and the appeals court should respect that. Okay, now, so read the rest of this, and it talks about how in March 2024, Superior Court Judge Scott McAfee, who's the trial court judge, had ruled that no conflict of interest existed that should force Fani Willis off the case. Donald Trump and the others appealed the ruling. Scott McAfee wrote that the prosecution was, quote, encumbered by an appearance of impropriety. He said Willis could remain on the case only if Nathan Wade left the case. The special prosecutor submitted his resignation hours later. So check out that piece from the Associated Press. Okay, now, Prosecutor Fani Willis removed from the Georgia election case against Trump and others. So that is from Thursday, December 19th, 2024. Okay, now, let's look at this other piece. This is from This is from AP News also. Court rules Georgia lawmakers can subpoena Fani Willis for information related to her Trump case. Let me see. Do I have this link here? Yeah, okay. So this is from December 27th, 2024, and this is what we were talking about at the beginning of the segment on Roland Martin Unfiltered. Okay, court rules Georgia lawmakers can subpoena Fani Willis for information related to her Trump case. A judge has ruled that the Georgia State Senate can subpoena Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis as part of an inquiry into whether she has engaged in misconduct during her prosecution of President-elect Donald Trump, but is giving Willis the chance to contest whether lawmakers' demands are overly broad. Fulton County Superior Court Judge Shakura Ingram filed the order Monday telling Willis she has until January 13th, 2025 to submit arguments over whether the subpoenas seek legally shielded or confidential information. Ingram wrote that he would issue a final order later saying that Willis had to respond to, saying what Willis had to respond to. Fani Willis, though, wants the ruling overturned. Quote, we believe the ruling is wrong and will appeal. Former Governor Roy Barnes, who is representing Fani Willis in the case, wrote in an email to the Associated Press. Okay, so read the rest of this also. Court rules Georgia lawmakers can subpoena Fani Willis for information related to her Trump case. Now, the article I was referencing from 11alive.com, which is a TV station there in the Atlanta area, is this article here. No, it's not against Georgia law for a prosecutor to have a personal relationship with appointee. No, it's not against Georgia law for a prosecutor to have a personal relationship with appointee. This is from February 17th, 2024. February 17th, 2024. And in this piece here, if we look at this briefly, I want to go down to the question. The question, is it against Georgia law for a district attorney to have a personal relationship with an appointee? The answer, no, it is not against Georgia law for a district attorney to have a personal relationship with an appointee. According to Peter Skandalakis, the executive director of the Prosecuting Attorneys Council of Georgia, there is no statute that states it is prohibited to have a relationship with an appointee. However, defense attorney Daryl Cohen, Cohen, believes that while Willis and Wade's relationship was not illegal, it may raise ethical questions. It is important to note that the hearing does not focus on the fact that the two had a romantic relationship. Instead, it centers around accusations made by the attorney for Trump co-defendant Michael Roman. Roman and 8 others seek to have Willis removed because they allege she financially benefited from the relationship. Okay. Now, you have 2 of Trump's attorneys who are married. But somehow that's not a problem. Trump attorney Ashley Merchant and her co-counsel husband John Merchant. They're married. For the defense, somehow that's not an issue. The defendants, including, okay, so, quote, if she hired him strictly because they were dating and she takes advantage of the money he's being paid, that would not only be inappropriate, that would not only be inappropriate, but grounds for recusal. But that's not the case. They started dating months after he was hired. But the testimony at this point has been other than that. So we'll just have to wait and see. So read the rest of this piece here. It's not illegal, based upon Georgia state law, for a prosecutor or 2 prosecutors, a superior and a subordinate, to be in a relationship prosecuting somebody. So this appeals court ruling, they're just making something up. This appeals court ruling, they're just making something up. And if we look at this, I want to look at this opinion piece from MSNBC.com. In this opinion piece, this is written by Shan Wu, legal analyst and former prosecutor. Okay. Let's see. Name of this article, opinion, Fani Willis should not have been disqualified from prosecuting Trump in Georgia. And give me a minute, I have to pull this up. How's everybody doing today? Give us a thumbs up, give us a heart, give us a like on this broadcast. You can also support the African History Network through Cash App or PayPal. Here's our Cash App QR code right here. This helps us keep doing the research, stay on the air, keep broadcasting, pay some of the bills, etc. So we definitely need your help. December and January are our 2 slowest months. All right, let me pull up this article here. Okay, Fani Willis didn't deserve to be disqualified from prosecuting Trump in Georgia. Okay, this is from December 20th, 2024 by Shan Wu, legal analyst and former federal prosecutor. The disqualification of Fulton County District Attorney Fani Willis by a Georgia appeals court follows a seeming trend among conservative judges to respect stare decisis, the doctrine of following previous judicial decisions, only when it suits them. The conservative supermajority of the U.S. Supreme Court leads the way notably with its June 2023 precedent flipping spree when in a matter of days it overturned some 200 years worth of precedent, including the near half century of precedent that evolved from Roe v. Wade. Now, whether it's a trickle down effect from the high court or just a shared love of untethered jurisprudence, the Georgia Circuit Court of Appeals displayed remarkable disrespect for both precedent and common sense in reversing trial judge Scott McAfee's decision and finding that DA Fani Willis and her entire office must be disqualified from the Georgia election interference case brought against Donald Trump and 8 co-defendants. There is no conflict of interest when two lawyers on the same team have a romantic relationship. They are already on the same side. Now, Trump and his co-defendants had initially asked Judge McAfee to dismiss the case entirely under the theory that an alleged romantic relationship between Fani Willis and another prosecutor, Nathan Wade, whom she had hired to work on the prosecution, prejudiced the case against the defendants. Trump attorney Ashley Merchant and her co-counsel husband, John Merchant, blithely put forth this argument with no apparent awareness of the hypocrisy of a husband and wife legal team, claiming prejudice arises from co-counsel being in a romantic relationship. Rather than quickly dispatching such a weak argument, Judge McAfee held a circus of a hearing lasting 4 days, F-O-U-R, 4 days, in which he and the country took a deep dive into Fani Willis' sex life, Nathan Wade's divorce proceedings, dinner dates, vacations, and who paid for what. All right, so read the rest of this piece here. Fani Willis didn't deserve to be disqualified